Hey there, sci-fi nerds. I'm talking about Mass Effect Andromeda now because it's out, and I've played roughly 15 hours or so of it since yesterday. I've played a lot of Mass Effect Andromeda in the last 24 hours, so let's talk about it a little bit, my initial first impressions of it, and the things I liked, the things I don't like, the things I noticed, and all that good stuff. For anyone who bought the game and needs their opinions validated, or if you haven't bought the game and you want to know whether or not it's in a state that you should probably, consider getting it, I got some mixed opinions about this one, I'm gonna be entirely honest, and I think a lot of my negative opinions or negative views on it are very subjective depending on how much you can deal with things like bugs and glitches throughout the game or performance problems, because while those are objective problems, how you deal with them and how well you can deal with them while you're playing a game is very much subjective. So let's talk about performance problems for a little bit here. I have been running into quite a few. I've had it drop down to, I believe, 32 frames, around 30 to 32 is kind of the lowest, and that's for a very short amount of time, like a few seconds at most, and oddly enough, the most frame drops I've seen so far haven't been in the big open worlds, they've been in the Nexus. If you don't know, the Nexus is kind of like the replacement for the Citadel in this game. You wander around like the big hub world and everything, talking to people, doing minor quests and all that. It's very densely packed, so it does have a big performance issue surrounding it right now that I've noticed. I'm running everything on, I believe, high settings. If you haven't seen my PC rig, you can go see that on my description for my channel. I can tell you I'm running a GTX 1070 with an i5 processor, 24 gigs of RAM, so I have a probably slightly above average PC at this point, and for the most part the game runs pretty well. It does see a bit of frame instability in general. It can bounce anywhere from 40 frames to around 60 and above, so that's a thing that is happening, and that if you are interested in the game, you should probably be aware of. So yeah, performance problems are a thing that's happening. It's not dire, it's not like an Arkham Knight situation, but they are definitely present. So let's talk about the gameplay a little bit here. Now, for the most part, this gameplay feels like Mass Effect gameplay. You walk around, you shoot things, you got that third-person, kind of close third-person view thing going on, which I was never really a big fan of in the Mass Effect games. I would have preferred it be pulled back just a little bit more, because I find it looks a little bit janky with some of the movements and things like that, but it works fine. If you like it, it's still there. Of course, the big difference is the open world aspect. Now, if you follow my channel at all, you know that I've been very openly kind of critical of the decision to go into an open world format for the Mass Effect series. I think that they didn't quite do it as well as they could have in Dragon Age Inquisition, and I was very worried that this game would feel a lot like Dragon Age Inquisition in the open world. Like, you go to these big open areas, there's not a whole lot to do. There's some very just like MMO-like patrolling enemies and things like that, very MMO gameplay elements. And the consensus I have on that, now that I've played the game for multiple hours, is that I feel like my concerns were very justified, and from what I've played, this game does feel very much like Dragon Age Inquisition. It's got a different, combat system in general, but what you're doing is very similar to it. You drive around the map instead of, ride around on it with a horse, and there's little pockets of things to go and see. You can only really interact with, a couple little containers, or you scan something to interact with it, and you kill whatever happens to be over there at the time as well. And that's what you're seeing right now. I'm just kind of, driving around the open world and shooting at things. Now, many people are going to really enjoy that, This isn't, a super ridiculously crazy open world like the Elder Scrolls or, The Witcher 3. This is very much a open world that you're meant to go and do a ton of busy work in, and some people enjoy that. I go back and forth on it. I don't know if I really wanted to be doing that all the time, and from what I've played so far, that's the majority of what you're doing in Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, the gameplay in general is pretty good. I don't really have that much to complain about it, other than that you're kind of fighting the same enemies on multiple planets, and everything kind of feels like nothing happens until you get there, or everyone's kind of milling about until you show up to shoot them in the face. So that's a problem with a lot of open world games, and I wish there was a better solution to it. I don't know what that is, but it's still present in Mass Effect Andromeda. It's a very empty world, except for everyone that's standing around some pillars or in their little camp or something. Other than that, you don't even really see any enemies patrolling around. The most I've seen is a couple little, like, local planetary wildlife and stuff, and they seem to be extremely glitchy, especially on the first planet. I haven't played on this one enough to notice it yet, but from what I saw on the first planet, there were little animals and stuff that would literally, like, respawn and pop up right in front of me while I was running through an area I had already been in. Like, they would appear about 5 feet away from me and then just start attacking me. Now, thankfully, all those ones were basically a one-hit kill for anything, so it's not a big deal, but that's a huge immersion breaker, and it's a really annoying bug that takes you out of the entire gameplay experience. There's plenty of things like that, too. It feels like this game needed another 8 months of polish, it needed another 8 months of beta testing, and to be honest, I don't feel like this is like a completely completed video game. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy it. I've been enjoying myself quite a bit playing it, actually. I love the storyline going on and everything. It's generic as hell, but hey, I'm kind of okay with that. It's not really a big deal to me. I like the idea that we're the aliens in a new galaxy, and everything we find is this new discovery. We have to learn to work with other people while we are like the visitors from somewhere else. That's totally cool, and I enjoy all that. It's just everything that happens in the game in regards to bugs and glitches, it really hinders the experience, and it feels like there wasn't enough product testing going on. I've had tons of glitches, like I just said, those enemies popping up right in front of you. I've had problems with trying to run over enemies in my Nomad. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the Nomad, the big vehicle you ride around in. Sometimes you just clip through enemies, other times you kill them instantly. Getting in and out of the Nomad, I've had my companions fall out of the sky and different things like that. When you're talking to characters, everyone knows, of course, the facial animations and stuff. That's not really a big deal to me, but there are things like when you are talking to characters, their shoulders or their legs will glitch out completely, and they'll like start twitching them erratically, so that's really distracting. And a variety of things like that that I feel like with a few extra months could have been hopefully solved, but they weren't. So if a patch could come in, that would be absolutely wonderful, and I really think it's needed because there are things that kind of hinder your experience a little bit and take away from it. In like a serious moment, I don't want my character glitching out or anything like that. I noticed that when you're talking to a lot of characters as well, what'll happen is if you're not in like a real cutscene, they have like those other cutscenes where it just kind of zooms in on the character model. They don't really have animations for when it does that, so the characters kind of like stand completely still and then they don't animate while they talk. It looks really weird, and it reminds me of like a shitty early access game on Steam. So that's a thing that goes on. I like these powers, by the way, the things you're seeing me use right now. The different powers that you can like shoot at the enemies, or you can put down barriers and stuff. I love all that stuff. That's really cool, and it kind of helps the open world combat feel a lot better. The open world combat, of course, was something that I was very skeptical of when I heard about it, because in my opinion, open worlds are never as good as handcrafted shooting areas and things like that, and the Mass Effect series did that pretty well. They put you through, yes, a lot of tight corridors and stuff, but at the same time, they crafted them to be like a legit level with thought put into it, whereas I find with open world games like this, what happens is you have this area that they just kind of place buildings and barricades in, and there's no thought to it. The enemies kind of try to utilize cover as best they can, but they'll run out into the open, like you just saw there. And to be honest, it feels like it's all kind of the same. Whereas in the other games, I felt like everything was unique. It had a purpose to it, why it was put there, every single trash can in the game, and stuff like that. Whereas this one, it's like, oh, we need to put in a camp here, or some remnant artifacts here, because there's nothing else here. What are the players gonna do then? So yeah, gameplay-wise, it's really what I expected, and I feel very justified in all my concerns about it. It's got a lot of bugs, a lot of glitches. I don't feel like the gameplay is as engaging as it should be. I feel like there's a lot that could be done to that, and really, every single complaint that I aimed at Dragon Age Inquisition for the most part is still in this game. Now, the thing is, I liked Dragon Age Inquisition. I played through the whole thing. I thought it was a fine game, and I like this game. It's not, like, amazing or a 10 out of 10 because it's got problems to it. That's the way I'm seeing it so far. But at the same time, I do enjoy the story. They put a lot of effort into that. There's a ton of stuff to do. And if you're someone who enjoys open-world games like Dragon Age Inquisition or anything like that, I feel like you can get your money's worth out of this, but if you can't handle things like glitches going on, it's probably best to wait a few months to see if they fix everything. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend you buy this right now. Give it a bit. Let them release a few patches and let them iron everything out that they need to, because right now, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Another problem I have with the game is the UI, and I don't feel like this is ever going to be fixed, which is very unfortunate. It feels like it was designed with a controller in mind, and there's so much of it. It's one of those games where to do any little action, you have to click on a button, then click to confirm, then confirm that confirm, and then you've sold your item, and other stuff like that. There's so many different menus for different types of crafting. It's like, oh, you have points for the Andromeda initiative, you have your own skill points, you have crafting options and resources, and then B resources and C resources, and all this different stuff that's really hard to follow, and I'm still trying to, like, wrap my head around it, because it's all jumbled together, and I don't know what I need. Like, I need 11 different ingredients for, like, a helmet and things like that. That's an exaggeration. It's more like 4 or 5 different ingredients, but I have to go out and find all of them. I have to go get, like, iridium or copper or nickel and all that stuff, and I'm sick of that. It's like, okay, if I want a helmet schematic, just let me get a helmet schematic and then let me get, like, copper and nickel. I don't want to get, like, I don't want to get 4 or 5 different ingredients to make one thing. That's dumb. That's like artificially padding out your game by doing things that aren't fun. Speaking of not fun, trying to navigate around the world map, or the galaxy map rather, that's an absolute chore to do, and I hate every second of it, because people have pointed this out already, and I sympathize and I see it now that I've started really trying to go to different worlds and stuff. It takes forever to try to get somewhere else. I don't know why they put this in there, but anytime you want to leave the planet or land somewhere or disembark from somewhere or go to another planet, to another system, you're always watching the game, like, do these cinematic transitions and stuff, and I swear it takes upwards of like a minute and a half just to get to somewhere else. It's really dumb. I don't know why they do that. I'm not even talking about, like, it takes a minute and a half to load into another planet. It's like it takes a minute and a half for the game to go through the transitions from, like, the planet you were at, like, hovering in space above it, to go hover in space at another planet in another system. Like, it's not loading different levels, it's loading the overhead map or something, and it takes forever, and it's terrible design decisions. I don't know what they were thinking. That's kind of crazy to me. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Mass Effect Andromeda so far. I'm going to cover it a lot more and let you know the things I like about it as I discover more of those, the things I dislike about it, and just some other stuff in general. This is very much my first foray into my impressions of this, so if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be covering this and doing everything, making sure that everyone has as much information as possible. That's, in my opinion, super useful. So, yeah, go do that. I am PattyJack, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.